For November 28th, for real this time, because earlier I got it wrong when I recorded yesterday's devlog, we finished hooking up commands to the links in the hover pop-up. Hello, fellow Sublime Text fanatics, ODAT nerd here, and welcome to your Devember devlog update for Monday, November 28th. Earlier today, I recorded the devlog for yesterday because various things conspired to make me have literally no time to work on video editing type stuff yesterday. I needed to get to bed, and I accidentally said the wrong date in the introduction, but I think I got the date right in the other part. In any case, this is the devlog for Monday. Let's go ahead and jump into things now. What we did yesterday was modify our hover pop-up to have other information like tags and commands. And we can even see that right here. The last thing we did was include these links to what should be watching the video, getting a link to it, and editing in YouTube Studio. And that's the only one that we had implemented previously because this command takes as an argument a video ID. All of these commands here didn't take a video ID, and they either would prompt you to choose a video from a command, not a command palette, a quick panel, or in the case of some of them here, from the actual link that you can create by knowing that a certain window is showing you the details for a video. So it would grab it out of a setting. So what we did today was basically modify all of these commands to be able to take optionally a video ID that they should work with so they can do their job right away instead of having to prompt you first, which is something that was planned from the get-go, but it wasn't until now that we had an easy way or a need, realistically, to actually execute a command that way. But they were all implemented with the idea that this sort of thing would be easy to do. So in the first one here, the command for viewing a link from inside of a browser. And what we would used to do before, that is the red code here, was when you executed the command, it would call get window link, which is something that is in the utils code, and it would use the current view to pull out the YouTube video ID setting and then create the link and open it in a browser. And what we actually have now is that this command takes optionally a video ID and a time code, and it will create the URL from the video ID and timecode provided if a video ID was provided, because that's always required. A timecode, optionally not. This particular utility function will just generate as if the timecode was 0 and watch the whole video. Otherwise, it calls get window link, which is the one that grabs it out of a setting. So the only other thing we had to do here is modify the is enabled, because previously it would only enable itself if it was executed inside of a YouTube window, but now it should do it if it's inside of a YouTube window or you actually provided a video ID. And we're going to see examples of all these commands at the end of this thing, but if we go on here, we can see here we replaced the stub echo command with YouTube editor view video link, and everything else was done because all of these were generated to assume that they were going to take an eventual video ID. And then moving on to the next command, this is the copy link. Now here, this one would pardon me, is one of the commands that would actually allow you to browse through videos, and this would allow you to go through playlists or tags or both, browsing down, eventually hitting into some table of content stuff, and only then copy the link. And again, with this one, we're doing the same sort of thing as we did before. We're short-circuiting it. Now, these helper methods here, and if I scroll this up a little bit, we can see anything that derives from YouTube Video Select, that helper class has its own run method, which does work to make sure that you are authorized, and it makes various requests and things of that nature. And that's what this normally doesn't even need to provide. But what we have done here is implemented it and say, let's grab out a video code and a time code from the arguments that we got here. And then if we actually got a video ID, call generate link to generate one for this video at this time code. If not, call into the super version instead, which will actually go through the process of asking you to pick a video and then pick a playlist, pick a tag, pick a table of content entry, all that stuff that we covered in a previous version. And then, of course, In order to make this as easy as possible to implement, we implemented generate link, which uses the copy video link to create the link provided. And we modify the method that used to be here to call generate link instead of this, so that there's only one place that does this. And then, of course, we can modify the link here to use get video link instead of echo, so that that command will now actually do something. And lastly, moving into the details command. Now, this one's slightly more complicated, such as it is, because this particular command, what it normally would do is ask you to browse through to find, same sort of thing as before. Go through a playlist or a list of tags, then find a video. And then when you choose it, it would fetch down the details for that video, open up a new window, and then display title, body tags, and a thumbnail off to the right-hand side. But that is all completely driven by the exact same functionality as before, YouTube Video Select, which we can see right here. And in order to get this one to work, we need to replace something slightly different. Now, you need to know how YouTube Video Select works, and you can see more of that in previous devlogs, and it was explained in some live streams early at the beginning of Devember. But essentially, this whole thing is a mechanism of when you call self.request, it's going to make a request. This is the type of request that it's going to get, and this is also inherently the name of a local method that will be called. So this actually would invoke a method named underscore video underscore details, and this would invoke a method in this class called underscore channel underscore list to display or to receive the results and do something with it. The first step of that is the run method, making sure that you're authorized and either authorizing the thread to be able to do it or invoking this to say you are now authorized directly. So what we have to do here is this. We need to grab out a video ID, then do what the main thing would do, which is grab out whether or not we're using tags or by playlist, which comes from run args, which is something that's handled by the underlying run method. And then only then, if we got a video ID, we want to jump directly to getting video details. Otherwise, do channel list, which gets to the aspect where it downloads the playlists and then asks you to pick one, then maybe picks tags, then you pick a video from the tag, and only then would it normally call video details. So we need to short circuit this here. This one took a little bit of time to wrap my head around because it seemed to work great and then it stopped working. And I realized the reason for that is that this actually needs to make a request. And if you reload the plugin, the thread isn't started, it's not authorized. If you were to try to trigger this command off of a pop-up before you make some other request, then you're not actually authorized. I wasn't actually doing it this way. I was doing it in run like we did before. So I tweaked things up and fixed it. Now, one downside to this is that this request is going to ask the network thread to fetch video details when if you were calling this with a video ID, you probably also have, at least in our case right now, access to all of the video information already because you used it to generate the report. So I could modify this to actually take a video dictionary and not do this. However, this seems, it's easier to write the code this way. It's not that big of a deal because anything that already had the video ID must have already fetched it and it would be cached. So this is a very quick operation to do anyway. And it also makes it work even if you weren't that particular pop-up code, which is what we want. We want this command to just always work for everybody. We don't want it to only work sometimes in certain cases, right? And then, of course, we go ahead and modify that thing in there. Now, one last change that happened here, which is something that I actually noticed first, and I spent a bit of time trying to figure out what it was that was going wrong, and it didn't occur to me at the time. I decided to just set it aside. But the hover pop-ups, as we implemented them previously, before this change right here, didn't work if the output was displayed in a panel, which is what the default settings are set to, which is why I noticed this. And that's because we were using a view event listener and telling it that it only applied to views that have a list of video IDs and video information inside of it so that it could actually know what to display in the hover pop-up. View event listeners are created for file tabs. They're not created for output panels. So this is applicable, was never called, and a view event listener was never created, so hover pop-ups wouldn't work. So we had to swap this to be an event listener. And if you watch Plugin 101, you know how easy this is. The main differences are it gets a view argument in place of where it normally wouldn't. Anywhere you see self.view has to become view instead because the view event listener has one view that it's associated with in its self.view property, and a view event and a regular event listener doesn't. And apart from that, this is exactly the same as everything. We can see remove self.self. This needs to actually get an explicit view because it can't use self, which means this call point had to change slightly here in order to do that. No big deal. The only thing that's actually different that we had to add here is we have to do the check that the view event listener was doing to make sure that the view event doesn't hover if these settings aren't set. And this, of course, is a great reason for why you'd use a view event listener in the first place for something like this. Now, if we were to jump over to Sublime, this is, again, what the things actually look like. But now all of these buttons actually work. And I have a tab here. So if I click watch, this is the one that worked previously. We can see that right there. This is that video, something I originally used when I set up my end title cards. Let's just leave that tab there for a second, slightly behind my head. If we were to instead say get link, we can see it copied that down there. And if I came over here and pasted that link in, this is actually it on YouTube, which you can't see because it's private. So I'm the only one that can actually view that particular thing for as long as this exists, which it doesn't really need to. If I clicked edit, then it would do the thing we just did, and this opens up in our own thing. Now, this doesn't have a thumbnail or tags or anything interesting in it, but we could, for example, come on down to, say, this one and click edit in Studio for this one instead. Edit, I should say. And we can see there's more stuff here. This is where the title goes, the tags, the actual body, and our little thumbnail there. And then lastly, if we were to choose one of these things, we'll go back up to the top here and choose edit in Studio. We can see that this is actually going to YouTube Studio, blinding me pretty hardcore. And we can see that there is, in fact, no thumbnail on this, and it's not in a playlist. It doesn't have any tags. This completely tracks with all the stuff that we've already seen here. And I'm going to have to do a quick edit there because I clicked the wrong button, but that's all we have for this. Now, tomorrow, right here on the channel, we're going live at 8 p.m. We're going to start working on, I believe, this is my plan for right now, actually doing something with that edit screen that we just saw so that we could type changes in there, hit a key, and ship those changes up. Because the ultimate goal for everything in Devember is the list of things we just saw are lists of videos which need to be fixed. In this particular case, videos on the channel that don't have a table of contents in the description method, in the description of the video, that lets you jump to different parts of the video. So I need to go through these one by one, watch those videos, add in the table of contents. Slowly this list will dwindle down. I also need to do things like make my tags a little bit better, make my video titles a little bit better. And I want to be doing that from inside of Sublime Text. So that is, I believe, what we're going to start doing in the live stream tomorrow. Use the buttons down below, thumb, subscribe, and share, ring the bell notification icon, follow me on Twitter. You will know when we're going live, and that is completely uncharted territory. I've never really played with getting this API to go in the other direction. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. And we'll try to come up with a backup plan in case that fails miserably. So we still have something fun to do inside of that particular live stream. But until that live stream or the next devlog update, if you don't see the live stream or the next video on the other channel, this is ODAT Nerd asking you to please have a sublime day.